Rinkcast, what's going on? Happy Thursday, the Thursday after Thanksgiving. Hope you're all doing well and had a good Thanksgiving. Here with Sean Fitzgerald and Jimmy O'Malley, Esquire. And we have news for you today, folks. A few hours ago, our beloved Chicago Blackhawks fired head coach Luke Richardson in what many people think was a surprising move. At the same time, this team really stinks right now. They're just not doing so hot. And so Luke Richardson is gonzo, folks. And Mr. Sorensen, who's done a wonderful job, Andrew Sorensen down in Rockford with their AHL affiliate, is going to be the interim head coach moving forward. So here we are. It happened. You can take to Twitter. You can hear what Meatballs have to say. And, complaining maybe it's roster construction. It's not Richardson's fault. But alas, he gone. Luke Richardson no longer the head coach of the Chicago Blackhawks. Were you guys surprised by this move? Jimmy, what do you got to say?
I will say, admittedly, I was. I thought he would stay at least through the Winter Classic. But as the season went on, it kind of became clear. Like, I went from he'll probably not make it through next season to he won't make it to the beginning next season to basically I thought it was just counting days. So a little bit of surprise, kind of out of the feeling that the firing came out of the blue, but not overly surprised based on his performance.
Yeah. Sean, what about you? When you got the text, when you got the alert, were you like, whoa, or was it like, well, maybe that was going to happen?
Yeah. So I was at the game last night, and just the energy in the building wasn't there. Like, they're like in a malaise, and I think
there weren't that many people there, were there? I mean, it didn't. Some of the pictures, it looked a little sparse in the crowd.
Yeah, and there were a lot more Bruins fans that I would have thought would be there, but yeah, I just think they've got to get something going, and like firing. You can't fire the team during the season. So what do? You fire the coach. You bring in a new voice, and hopefully he's worth some wins. I found a dated article from The Athletic. It's from 2019, but coaches during the salary cap era, it was from for 14 seasons. So through last 05-06, teams that made a coaching change went from a 479 points percentage to a 535 points percentage afterwards. So when you fire your coach in the beginning of the season, you're a percentage point better. So you're probably going to see a jump when Sorensen takes over.
Yeah, it's usually the way it works. The first game with a new head coach, the players show up.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I actually did a little digging before we came on here. When Derek King came over, the Hawks actually went on a winning streak.
Yep.
The first time they won I think they won four games in a row. And when Colleton took over for Quinville, they dropped 3 out of the next 4. So those are the 2 most recent examples of the Hawks firing coaches in the season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. They've got the Jets and the Rangers next. So I don't. I guess let's limit our expectations for Anders here, but at the same time, I mean, Jimmy, you've been coveting Rockford. We'll go back and forth a little bit, but I do want to touch base on their interim coach. Sorensen's done a hell of a job down there. Any expectations of him? Are you excited? Obviously, with the younger players, he's done terrific things, and systematically with offensive output, some good stuff going on there.
Yeah, and one thing I will add, he's not. This isn't the first time he's going to be an interim head coach. He actually, when he was hired by the Ice Hawks to become their head coach in the 2021-22 season, it was on an interim basis. So this is not something that should be new to him in terms of coming in halfway through a season while within the Blackhawks organization. And I mean, he's been with the Blackhawks since I'm looking now, since it looks like the 2014-2015 season. So this is a guy the organization knows very well. Personally, I would have rather kept him in Rockford. There's a lot of first and second year.
Yeah, that's your bread and butter right now.
Yeah, and
that's what's going on.
The team is doing well. They are coming off a 7-3 victory over Lehigh Valley. Like, they dominated. They've looked really good. So I'm a little worried. I think I'm not worried about Sorensen's ability as a head coach. I think he proved it with 3 straight playoff appearances down the AHL. I'm a little worried about Mark Eaton taking over in Rockford.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I guess if you were to turn back the clock, and we talked a little bit about this just before we jumped on the show, but there are a lot of people saying it's not Luke's fault. The roster makeup isn't great. And that may very well be. That may very well be. I mean, this team is not built to win now, no matter what. They were definitely built to be better than this. And I think that's totally fair. Whether you can say, Hall's been okay. Donato's had a good year. Bertuzzi's been bad. Kurashev has been deplorable. A lot of people will say, well, that's actually just who he is. Fine. But I think right now is that, the Hawks have a lot of woes. One is the TV situation, obviously, that Sean has been so diligent in providing feedback on, which has been great. The other, they're not selling tickets. And then their budding star is not performing. Mm-hmm. And so you're going into the Winter Classic. You got a lot of attention on you. They probably just don't want to be embarrassed at Wrigley Field. And maybe this is kind of just a last-ditch effort to do that. You're also buying yourself a little bit more time to have a more comprehensive search potentially, as opposed to doing it in April or July or whatever, or later down the road. So I don't know. It is interesting. But, Jimmy, you were talking, and I can't remember if it was Jimmy or Sean, you were talking about some goal stats or offensive output stats right before the show that you're saying, wow, they're really bad. What did you have for us,
that was me. Actually, I was quoting a tweet about actually like 20 minutes ago from Ben Pope.
Yep.
From October to now. In October, they had a 48.8% expected goal rate, which is 19th, which isn't great. But there is an argument that, this early losing is kind of just bad luck. Like when we get back to that, like when our goals start matching our expected goals, we'll start, finding a rhythm. But since then, they've dropped the dead last, 42.2. Like that's a 6.6% drop in a month.
Yeah,
that's. I think that was kind of, if not the last straw, one of the big straws that broke. That made them go, all right, like this is really bad. Like,
I'll give you another stat too that Ben Pope referenced in an article. So a lot of people, including Pope and myself, are saying that one of the big reasons Luke Richardson is out is because of the regression of Connor Bedard. So Connor Bedard has spent 9% and 40% of his 5-on-5 ice time with 9 different forwards this season.
Yeah.
Last year, he spent 73% of his shifts with Philip Kurashev. Mm-hmm. So that's way different. Like the consistency's just not there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a big. I think Connor Bedard is the most important player in this organization right now. The most, by far, of any player they have. Have at the NCAA. And he's clearly frustrated. He broke his stick again against the bench last night. Mm-hmm. He couldn't put it in the net. And people are saying some of it could be based on Richardson's conservative system. Like Richardson plays a conservative system of hockey.
He does. And systematically right now, offensively, there's no cohesion. There's nothing going on that they're doing that looks like there's a blueprint or a plan out there, and I think that Richardson is a defensive specialist, and he has done better with the D this year. The D is better. But the other thing defensively that the team's done better, but offensively, they just can't seem to get it going. And it's also, and I think we talked about this on the last pod, it's not the losses, it's how they're losing.
Right.
It's 1 or 2 goals a game. It's embarrassing. I mean, it's like there's nothing to cheer for. If you're losing 6-5 and you're rebuilding, that's like the San Jose Sharks right now are rebuilding and they're scoring.
Yeah. Macklin Celebrini is electric.
Right. And they're exciting. And, Smith looks great. And so when they're losing, they're still scoring 4 or 5 goals a game. And it's just like, it just feels different when you're rebuilding and you're a little bit more on the offensive. So, and then they, Boston comes into town last night and in a national audience, they got pretty much embarrassed.
Well, a national audience aside from Chicago. But we'll get into that.
We're able to watch the game. But I mean, it was pretty much like, everyone was kind of hoping, maybe in a national audience, maybe Bedard will take off tonight. And, and Boston has had a lot of hills and valleys this year, and they made last night look really easy.
Yeah, it was after the first shift of the game when the Hawks scored, like you never thought the game was in doubt for Boston.
No.
There was never any. There was maybe one shift outside in the third period or the second period. You thought maybe the Hawks had something cooking on offense. Even the Dickinson goal, you didn't really. It was just kind of like he shot the puck,
banked off a few people.
Yeah, it went in, and you were like, okay, this is cool. But then, like, you got back in the flow of the game, and you're like, I don't really feel anything. Like, there's nothing going on the ice.
Right. Yeah. What about the timing of this? How do you feel about it being right now, Jimmy? I mean, are we just indifferent at this point? I kind of am. I'm just like, all right, like I don't.
You just kind of live with it. I feel like that's kind of the situation. You'd rather fire a guy if you knew he wasn't someone you wanted to keep than just stay stuck with him. And I think the comments I heard from Kyle Davidson and the press release, it seems like they're doing this for two reasons. One, to just clear the air and just be like, hey, this guy is not the coach going forward. And two, they want to see what Sorensen has. Like they said, this is basically like an audition for him. They think very highly of Sorensen. They've trusted him in the AHL. Maybe he could have a future up here. I doubt it. Preferably, I think he should just return to the AHL after the season ends.
Yeah,
new coach.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he's excited.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for him. I like what I've seen in Rockford. I mean, he has and I think the one thing I will mention, just statistically, he is in the Western Conference of the AHL. Rockford is third in both the power play percentage and penalty kill percentage. There's a good power play team. There's a good penalty
with a young group too.
Yeah, and he emphasizes speed. Like that power play in Rockford looks completely different than it does in Chicago. Guys are moving, puck's moving. The puck never stays still in any zone. So, I mean, if it works in the AHL, maybe it can work in the NHL. Maybe it can translate. And who knows? Maybe he could be the future. I'm not shutting the door, but at least if you fire Luke now, you can figure that out with, less worry about signing him to a long-term deal.
Right. No, I mean, I'm sure there's – now, I have not seen this on Twitter, and so – but I'm sure this exists, the theory of, well, good, now that Sorensen's coming up, maybe he's going to bring some of these guys up. Maybe this is part of the plan to bring Sorensen up and have him coach Frank Nazar and some of the other young guys, and they're going to bring him up to the Blackhawks now and bring him up to the big club. Is that part of the plan? Do you buy that theory that that's a possibility, or is it still, oh, wait a minute, we're still going to see these kids cook and marinate for a little while?
Go ahead, Joey.
Go ahead, Sean. Oh.
All right, I'll go.
Johnny.
Yeah. So I think that the kids aren't going to come up this year. I still think the plan is to have them over marinate in Rockford. Emily Kaplan tweeted as much. But I think what Sorensen has as a leg up to be perhaps to have the interim tag removed is when the kids are ready to come up either late this year or next season, that he's worked with them before, he's gotten the most out of them. So maybe when the kids are ready to come up and he's still the coach, there's not like a learning curve. There's more of we can just build off everything we've accomplished in Rockford. Similar. I know this is kind of like people won't blow it out of proportion, but Tampa Bay did something similar. Like Cooper coached those guys. He coached a bunch of guys in juniors, and he coached the AHL team for Tampa. And then when they were ready to win, he moved up to the NHL level with those guys in Tampa. So, but Sorensen he still could be, if he doesn't work out at the NHL level, you can still have him go back down to Rockford. It's perfect right now. It's the perfect audition for him.
Yeah, I do think this gives them time to assess things, which is helpful. I mean, if you're going to say it's a lost season, I mean, there was one school of thought, well, hey, it's a lost season, so just let Luke stay there. But then it's another thing to say, all right, let's bring in a guy and not promise him anything. And so they can take a look at the bigger picture, and who knows what candidates are going to come around.
But in the lost season,
certainly don't have to rush this.
Yeah, and in the lost season, though, you don't want to stunt the growth of the guys you already have at the NHL level. And I think that's why the move was made.
Yeah,
stunting Bedard's growth.
Right, no more important than 98.
Yeah,
there's no more important figure in this whole thing than Connor Bedard.
Yeah.
So,
and you mentioned Cooper, another name that kind of came to mind. Similar upbringing, coached the guys in the AHL, came to the NHL, saw success.
Coach.
Mike Sullivan of Pittsburgh. Like, he had all those guys that came up in 2016 and 2017, guys that he spent years cultivating down in Wilkes-Barre, and it worked. No, this is not me saying they're immediately going to win a Stanley Cup like Sullivan did, because Sullivan, I mean, he had Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Kessel.
Yeah,
but maybe there's some similarities of maybe a year from now, if he does well and they trust him with the guys like Nazar and Levshinov and Korchinski and Doc and Slager. Maybe there's a vision there.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, there's all sorts of possibilities. There's also, there are going to be NHL coaches that, don't make it through the year that'll be available during the summer. If the Rangers keep on with their issues, is Laviolette going to be one of those guys? We don't know. I mean, there's plenty of NHL coaches that have been repackaged, I guess you could say. And recycled and repackaged.
If you recycle a guy, you've got to find a guy that's a good teacher of young players.
Sure,
that's ultimately what the team's going to be. Laviolette, in my opinion, is more of a win now guy. Like when he was with Nashville, with Philadelphia, and now with the Rangers, he was always brought in to win. Like, get him over the hump and win.
Yeah. I mean, I know this sounds. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say another name I've heard kind of floated. I forget. Jay Woodcroft, I believe his name.
Okay.
Name I kind of heard floated around as maybe someone to look at next offseason. Who knows?
Yeah. No, he's one. I mean, another name that I would love to see come up is David Carl. The Denver coach who won 2 of the last 3 national championships. He's coached the World Junior team. I think he's coaching them again. And that guy just wins. And he's systematic, and he wins, and he's great with young kids. I hope he will be an NHL coach at some point if he wants to be. He might be one of those. I mean, he might be like a Tom Izzo type that's just like, no. I'm, this is the age group I stay with. Yeah, I'm a college coach. This is what I do. But that's a name that I'm hoping gets entertained as opposed to kind of a recycled.
He could pull a Billy Donovan or the old Butler coach, who's now the GM of the Celtics, where he picks his spot, like, because he's got so much cachet built up at Denver. Until the right head coaching job comes up, he's not gonna. He's got a job in mind. Until that job comes up, he's not gonna leave Denver.
Yeah,
like those guys did.
I don't hate it, but my problem is, who was that coach? Rangers had him, Sharks had him. He didn't work out. He was a former college coach. I think it's Quinn, yeah.
Or the former Kraken coach last season, and I think he started with the Flyers. What was his name? He just got fired from Kraken last year.
Yeah,
he coached at North Dakota forever. I can't think of his name.
That's not Eakin. Yeah. No, that's.
He was a college coach for a long time, and then he came up, and his system worked for one season, and then that was it.
Axtell,
that's who it was. David Axtell.
Yeah. What's interesting about Quinn too is that, like, I don't, those BU teams when he was there weren't the best BU teams. They're not the BUs of now. So it's interesting that he got sent to the NHL so quickly. But what does this mean for the rest of this season? Who knows? I mean, I think in a lot of ways it is a lost season, but I think that, and I want to make mention of this. I know we talked about it before the show, whether you think this is the right time or whether you think this is the right move, there is the notion out there that, well, this is on the roster reconstruction and this is on the players. It's not on the coach. But I think that a lot of the people that are saying those things right now are the same people that in August were saying there's some really good pickups that the Hawks just made and this team will be better.
Mm-hmm. Or be in the playoffs.
Right. And now they're saying, oh, this is terrible roster construction. And that may be, but at the same time, like, if you are not getting the most out of your players at all, and there's a number of them, It's not just Connor Bedard. It is Bertuzzi. It is Teuvo Teravainen, who has not been good.
Yep.
Hall has had, he had that hat trick, but other than that, I mean, he was a healthy scratch. If you have so many of those players, at some point you do have to look at the head coach, and you're rock bottom in the NHL standings. And nobody saw that coming this year. This is not a tank year. It was not supposed to be. It was supposed to be a year where the team is making strides, and they're just not doing it. So, I guess, Jimmy, to your point, and Sean too, this shouldn't be a huge surprise, because there's been whispers and rumblings about this for probably about 3.5 weeks now.
Yeah, I mean, even to the most pessimistic improvement fan, which was me, I still thought this team was bottom 5. I expected 4 or 5 from the bottom, not bottom.
Yeah.
I expected some. I like you expect Bedard to continue doing well, Vlasic to continue doing well. You bring in,
and he has. Vlasic's been great.
Vlasic's been great. I'm not going to deny that, but again, and you add guys like Teuvo and Bertuzzi, who are very much complementary scorers, but at the same time, they're better than what you had last year.
Right.
You hope for a couple more wins, and to be in a situation where you're dead last, the only team kind of close to you and just patheticism is Nashville, who probably will fire their coach next.
Right.
Patheticism.
That's a good one.
Yeah. I made that up. Even the most pessimistic fan would be like, hey, this was bad. And even the most optimistic fan has to just, or even the biggest Luke Richardson defender will have to just look at this and things were going in the wrong direction.
And
players weren't confident, and wins weren't being made. So,
what Andy or you said, I think the timing is they don't want to be embarrassed on national television. And they haven't been on national television.
They just were. Last night. Yeah.
But they don't want to be it's New Year's Eve at Wrigley Field. The last time they played at Wrigley Field was 2009 when they were ascending to eventually the dynasty era, and now we're just kind of.
Well, no, yeah, you have to have a good showing at the Winter Classic so people keep buying tickets for the rest of the season.
Right. Keep buying jerseys, keep buying tickets.
Right. So it's tough. And I think Jimmy, whether you thought that this team was going to be 5th from the bottom, whether you thought they were going to be contending for a playoff spot, which none of us here thought that was going to be possible, at least we were all coming into the season seeing we're going to see an exciting brand of hockey, and they're going to compete every night. Mm-hmm. And that has not been
not the case. No.
It's just I even said you'll see a lot more 3-4, 2-3 losses, and right now it just feels like more of the 6-2, 4-2, 5-2 variety.
Yeah. Two's their threshold.
Yeah, you get 2 and you're just all right, that's it for the game.
No. So
yeah.
Anyway, well, any other thoughts on Luke Richardson and the firing? Folks, we are going to be back on Tuesday to talk more about Rockford and then how the weekend goes after this, but we wanted to hit you up tonight quickly just to touch base on this. And any other thoughts, fellas?
Not much. Good luck, Sorensen. I'm a fan.
Yeah, this will be fun. We're rooting for him. I mean, it'd be great.
I'm excited
go earn the job. I don't know. Maybe he does great. Maybe they keep him around because they are still a few years away from competing. So who knows? Maybe he'll have a longer leash. I don't
know. Yeah. I'm excited to see what Bedard does now in a different offensive system.
Yeah. I hope he takes off. I mean, I
think our biggest thing, and Sean kind of talked on it earlier, I think by end of December, you got to have lines, especially line pairings for Bedard that he keeps for the end of the season. You
absolutely, 100%. And I don't want to feel validated either, being like, oh God, firing the coach was the right move, and it was Luke. I don't think any of us want to feel that way. Luke has been a great guy, and hats off to you, Luke Richardson. For over 2 years, dealt with a very difficult situation where you just knew you weren't going to win a whole lot of games.
Yeah.
And so, but I do want to see, we all want to see the team take off.
And hopefully Richardson in the future gets another chance to be a head coach.
I hope so. Yep. And he's dealt a better deck of cards to play with.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've seen, from his time in Montreal, players like him, players like dealing with him. He's not a guy that
he seems like a great guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't rub players the wrong way. So I think he'll land on his feet, maybe in his associate or assistant or something.
Yeah. So good luck, Luke Richardson, and thank you. and let the interim Anders Sorensen regime begin. We'll see where it goes. Throw you right into the deep end of the pool against the Winnipeg Jets on Saturday afternoon. So good luck, buddy. That won't be easy.
Yeah, you had to fly out from Hartford.
Boy, is that team good. Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah. Connor Hellebuyck, unbelievable this year.
Yeah. So, folks, thanks for your brief time tonight, but we wanted to hit you up because that's big-time Blackhawk news. We will be back. The three of us, probably plus Eric, will be back on Tuesday night, next Tuesday night, around 8 o'clock Eastern, where we're going to touch base on Rockford, the weekend happenings, and a lot more Blackhawk stuff. But we're really going to dig our heels into Rockford. Jimmy's got stuff for you. I'm sure there will be updates on the TV situation, and Shawnee will tell you. Yep. Shawnee will tell you all about that and the TNT local blackout last night, which nobody thought was supposed to happen, but then did. So right now, this team can do no right. So hopefully blue skies ahead, but I guess don't bet on it in the interim. So for those of you that listen tonight, thank you very much. Big shout out to my guy, junior soccer player at Brook School, Hugh Foster, for listening tonight, bearing with us. Good dude. And big shout out to you. Brooks Hockey has its opener tomorrow night at Pingree. We're all really fired up. And go Hawks, go Prospects, go Rockford. If you want to watch good hockey, watch the Rockford Ice Hogs right now.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, thanks, folks. And have a good night, and we'll talk to you soon.